We all think we understand strange disappearances. We tell ourselves people get lost, fall into rivers, or simply choose not to come back. But what if none of those explanations are true? What if something far older, far hungrier, is calling people into the woods and they never return? For years, the reports were dismissed as superstition, campfire legends, rural paranoia. But then came the signal, a faint transmission from deep inside a forest where no radio should ever reach. The broadcast was first detected by an amateur radio operator from Finland. A short burst of static, followed by a rhythmic tapping like Morse code, but distorted as if choked by interference. Then a voice, weak, trembling, barely above a whisper. Help us. We can't get out. The trees, they move. Authorities claimed it was a hoax. But the signal returned the next night. And the next. Always at exactly 3:11 a.m., always from the same impossible location. For decades, locals near the Corporana forest spoke of people who walked into the trees and were never seen again. Hunters, surveyors, rescue teams. Their paths vanished as if swallowed by the earth. Maps became useless. Compasses spun in circles. Dogs refused to enter the tree line. The government sealed off the area after the disappearance of an entire search unit in 1998. The official report blamed extreme weather. But there was no storm that night. Only silence. To understand the truth, we must follow the last team who entered the woods. A group of volunteer rescuers, armed with satellite trackers, thermal drones, and high-frequency radios. Their mission: find the source of the transmission and recover whoever was calling for help. Their leader, Sergeant Marco Leto, was an experienced veteran, a man who had survived 3 tours in war. But even he hesitated at the forest edge, whispering that the air felt wrong, too still, too watchful. The first few hours were uneventful. Footsteps crunching snow, radios crackling with routine updates, coordinates marking steady progress. But then the mist rolled in, thick and unnatural swallowing sound. GPS died instantly. Every satellite a blackout. The team's thermal drone went blind, returning only a blank white screen as though the forest itself radiated heat like a living body. Their radios, once clear, now carried faint breathing beneath the static. Long, slow, deliberate. At 3:11 a.m., the same time the broadcast always began, the signal returned. But now it wasn't a whisper. It was screaming. Tortured, desperate, echoing through every receiver. Turn back, please, it's watching. The woods answered with deep groaning wood warping, cracking, as if trees were twisting under pressure. The rescuers formed a defensive circle, weapons drawn though they saw nothing. The mist pulsed around them, contracting like lungs. Then came the voices, dozens, maybe hundreds, calling the rescuers by name. Not random, not guessing. Each voice matched someone they knew. Wives, brothers, children, friends long dead. Some begged. Some laughed. One team member broke formation and ran toward the sound. By the time the others caught him, he was kneeling, staring at something they could not see, whispering, "They're right here behind the trees." His eyes were wide, filled with awe and terror. When they tried to pull him away, he screamed not in fear, but in agony. His skin was freezing rapidly, turning gray like stone. Frost spread across his body in seconds. Then, with a wet crack, something yanked him backward into the fog so violently that his shoulder tore free from its socket. His blood steamed on the snow. The rescuer holding him fell to his knees, shaking. In their recordings, you can hear the tearing sound echo as if the forest were feeding. Panic erupted. The team tried to retreat, but every direction led back to the same clearing. No landmarks. No path. The trees shifted while they watched, trunks grinding against one another, forming a living wall. The forest wasn't a place, it was a trap. A cage, a predator. And the signal, they realized, wasn't a distress call. It was bait. A lure designed to draw more bodies into its jaws. The mistake was believing anyone needed saving. The final transmission came at sunrise. A single shaky voice, drowning in static. Do not answer the signal. It's not human. It's hunting. Then came the sound of tearing flesh, bones snapping, and a monstrous roar unlike anything recorded before. The line went dead. When recovery crews arrived weeks later, all they found were shredded uniforms frozen into the ground, and radios still transmitting faint static from an empty frequency. The signal is still being heard today. For months after the disappearance, investigators combed the forest edge but refused to cross the perimeter. Even military dogs refused to approach, whining and clawing at the ground to escape. One officer reported feeling as if the trees were leaning toward us. Listening. Every attempt to map the area failed. Drones lost control. Compasses spun endlessly. Satellite photos returned only a black void, as if the forest absorbed light itself. It was as though the land had erased its own existence. Officials issued a public statement claiming the rescue team died due to severe exposure and natural hazards, but not a single body was recovered. Families demanded answers. They never got them. The radio operator who first heard the signal vanished from his apartment 2 weeks later. The door locked from inside, dinner still warm on the table. The only clue was his radio transmitter still running, frozen on the same frequency, broadcasting nothing but a heartbeat-like pulse every 4 seconds. Rumors spread quickly. Survivors from nearby villages spoke of nights when the mist crept beyond the tree line and whispers seeped through bedroom windows, calling people by name, pleading for help. Some swore they saw pale figures wandering at the forest edge, moving stiff and wrong, like puppets pulled by invisible strings. Authorities blamed mass hysteria. But fear doesn't build itself from nothing. Fear grows from truth buried just deep enough to rot. A year later, a second expedition was formed in secret. Scientists, military engineers, and 2 psychics who specialized in environmental hauntings, a term whispered like a curse. Their equipment included ground-penetrating radar, spectrum microphones, and thermal scanners powerful enough to detect life through walls. None of it worked once they crossed the tree line. Every device shut down simultaneously, as if the forest rejected the presence of technology like a living organism resisting infection. Their field notes survived only because they were written by hand. One entry reads, "We hear voices ahead. They sound like children, but there are no footprints." The forest floor is clean, too clean, as if something sweeps away traces of movement. The trees are moving. We watch them turn while standing still. The bark pulses like veins under the skin. The handwriting trembles more with every page, strokes jagged and broken, like someone writing while shaking violently. Another entry describes a discovery, a clearing where dozens of old radio towers, rusted and broken, jutted from the ground like bones. Cables tangled through the snow, connecting nothing. Speakers hung from branches, swaying slowly as if moved by invisible hands. When the wind blew, every speaker emitted the same soft sound, a faint crying, overlapping, layered with hundreds of voices. One scientist collapsed, covering her ears, screaming that the voices were inside her head. That night, they set up camp, building a perimeter of light, intended to ward off whatever stalked them. But darkness swallowed the floodlights one by one, as though consumed by a depthless abyss. Something thrashed violently beyond the fog-heavy, deliberate, circling closer. The team reported hearing footsteps that sounded like multiple people walking in perfect synchronization. Then came laughter, high-pitched and animalistic, echoing from every direction. Just after midnight, the first disappearance occurred. A guard vanished silently from his post, no struggle, no footprints, no blood. Only his rifle, bent as if twisted by enormous force. Panic fractured the group. Arguments erupted. Some wanted to push deeper. Others begged to retreat. But every attempt to leave led them back to the same clearing. Just like the first rescue team, they were trapped, not lost, but held. Caged, observed. Their final entry ends abruptly. We found something buried beneath the snow. A structure, not a bunker, something older. Stone, carved with symbols that move when you look away. The signal is not a message. It is a doorway, and it is opening. If anyone finds this, the page tears mid-sentence. The ink trails off, smeared across the paper, as if the writer was dragged away mid-stroke. There were no further records. When recovery teams eventually reached the clearing, all they found was the camp, abandoned, but intact tents ripped open from the inside, snow-stained black with something thicker than blood. Recording devices were smashed, but the radios were still running, broadcasting a new sound, slow-breathing, wet, and animalistic, layered with faint whispers repeating over and over, "We're not dead. We're underneath. The team fled. None ever returned. The government attempted one final operation, an extraction mission designed not to rescue, but to contain. Their objective was simple and horrifying: seal the forest, destroy any trace of what lived inside, and bury the truth forever. Explosives were placed along the perimeter, ready to collapse the landscape into a controlled firestorm. But when ignition began, nothing happened. The detonators failed simultaneously, as if the forest itself refused to die. The ground vibrated like a heartbeat. Satellite recordings from that night captured something impossible: a massive circular distortion spreading outward from the forest, bending light and swallowing infrared signatures. For 11 seconds, the region simply vanished from every instrument that observed it, an absence, a hole in reality. When visibility returned, the forest looked unchanged, but every ignition device had melted into slag. The operation commander reported hearing thousands of voices screaming beneath the soil. 2 weeks later, the signal returned stronger, clearer, and unmistakably human. The voice belonged to Sergeant Leto, the leader of the first rescue team. His tone was calm, emotionless, like someone speaking through a dream. "We're alive," he said. "It's beautiful here. You should come. We're waiting." Analysts compared the voice to DNA samples, a perfect match. But there was no logical explanation. He had died months earlier. After the broadcast, sightings increased. Travelers reported pale figures watching from highway ditches, heads tilted sideways like broken dolls. One logging truck crashed after the driver swerved violently, claiming a woman covered in frost stood in the middle of the road. Her eyes were black voids. When police arrived, they found deep footprints leading into the woods, bleeding water but leaving no blood. The last coherent scientific hypothesis suggested the forest was not haunted, but hungry, a predatory ecosystem capable of mimicking human voices and shapes to lure prey. A living intelligence older than recorded history. Something that evolved to consume not flesh, but consciousness. People didn't simply die inside the woods. They became part of it, absorbed, recycled, their memories repurposed as bait for the next victims. The government built a steel barrier around the region, 4 meters high, armed guards patrolling day and night. Warning signs declared the area toxic, contaminated by radiation. But every few nights, guards heard tapping on the wall from the inside slow. Deliberate patterns that matched Morse code for open. Sometimes the tapping came from dozens of places at once, like hands slapping metal in unison. Then the screaming began. Not human screaming, something deeper, layered, like multiple throats screaming through one mouth. The sound shook floodlights, cracked frozen ground, and shattered windows in nearby towns. People woke vomiting, ears bleeding, animals convulsing violently. Microphones attempting to record the sound melted into black plastic. Audio experts determined the pitch was not possible for biological lungs. In desperation, authorities evacuated every town within 80 kilometers. Entire communities abandoned overnight. Dishes still on tables, toys in yards, doors left hanging open in the wind. Helicopters circling the region reported movement under the forest canopy, shifting shapes, flowing like boiling tar. Some pilots refused to continue flying, claiming they felt watched from below by thousands of unseen eyes. The last confirmed communication came from a surveillance drone that flew directly over the forest's center. Its camera captured a clearing shaped like a perfect circle, too geometrically precise to be natural. In the center stood a tower of tangled bodies, human forms fused together, faces frozen in silent screams, eyes open and moving independently. At the base, a dark hole breathing in steady rhythm, exhaling mist like lungs. Just before the drone feed cut to static, a voice whispered through the audio channel, a voice identical to the missing radio operator from Finland. "Do not try to stop it. We are already inside you." The feed ended with a deafening low-frequency blast that ruptured equipment. Since that moment, the signal has spread, jumping frequencies across Europe and North America. No one knows what will happen when the transmission reaches full strength. But one thing is certain, it's coming. Today, the region remains sealed behind fences and military patrols, but the government no longer pretends this is a natural disaster site. They stopped releasing statements months ago. Journalists who attempt to investigate vanish without trace cars left idling on the roadside, cameras abandoned in the snow. Those who live nearby claim they still see lights moving through the treetops, drifting like lanterns carried by invisible hands. The ground trembles some nights, like breathing. Scientists who analyze the surviving transmissions believe the signal carries patterns too complex for human language structures resembling neural activity, like the electrical firing of a living brain. They now believe the forest is not merely alive, but evolving, growing stronger each time someone listens. Every broadcast spreads its reach, turning curiosity into infection. One researcher warned that even hearing the signal for a few seconds can change a person permanently. Some of the evacuees report terrifying symptoms, hearing voices beneath silence, seeing shadows crawl beneath their skin, waking in the night standing at their windows, staring toward the forest without remembering getting out of bed. Several victims tore their nails off trying to claw open walls, insisting they could hear someone begging for help on the other side. Doctors cannot explain why their pupils refuse to contract in light, reflecting like predator eyes. A classified leaked audio recording captures a military meeting discussing the possibility that the forest is expanding underground. Seismic scans show long organic tunnels growing outward like arteries. Officials argue about how to stop something that cannot be burned, cannot be bombed, and cannot be touched without being consumed. The recording ends with a single sentence spoken in a shaking voice. What if the forest is not spreading? What if it has already arrived? Last month, an entire monitoring outpost on the Western Barrier went silent. When soldiers arrived, they found the steel wall bowed inward, bent like warm wax. Footprints bare, bloody, thousands of them led into the snow, then vanished abruptly as if lifted into the air. Tower cameras recorded only one image, a single pale hand pressed against the lens, fingers too long, joints bending the wrong direction, nails splitting like bark. Since then, reports have multiplied. Children claiming that voices call to them from tree knots and cracks in pavement. Security guards hearing tapping patterns beneath concrete floors. People receiving phone calls from numbers with no origin signal hearing loved ones long dead whispering, "Come home." The barrier no longer matters. Whatever lives inside the forest has learned how to step through walls we cannot see. Last week, the signal jumped to global emergency frequencies, overriding commercial satellites, bleeding into aircraft navigation, interrupting television broadcasts with static and distorted breathing. Experts say the pulse resembles a countdown, patterns repeating faster each day. Military communications leaked a phrase now circulating in panic: containment breached. Prepare for assimilation. No one knows what that means, only that time is running out. Across Europe and North America, birds fly in frantic circles, crashing into glass. Dogs howl at nothing. Power grids flicker and surge. The sky over the region turns a sickly green at night, lightning crackling without thunder. People claim they see silhouettes standing in fields during storms, hundreds of them, motionless in the rain, faces lifted toward the sky as if waiting for a signal to begin. 2 nights ago, the signal broadcast worldwide. Not static this time, but a voice. Calm, familiar. Do not be afraid. We are not taking your world. We are inviting you into ours. Then came the sound of thousands of lungs inhaling at once. A long, slow breath so deep it rattled buildings. Cameras across the globe captured the same image. Tree bark splitting open like flesh, revealing eyes staring outward from within the trunks. And now, as you listen, the frequency continues to spread. If you feel watched, you are. If you hear whispering when the room is silent, answer and you will not be alone. The signal chooses who hears it next. It begins softly just beneath your heartbeat, calling you into the dark. Do not follow the sound. Do not step into the trees. Because once you answer, you are already theirs.